I realize the subject matter of this video is not going to be to the liking of a lot of Bears fans. I realize that I'm going to be in the minority here. I don't care. I never do. When I see something that I believe in, I'm going to speak on it, whether people like it or not. And the bottom line is, I am of the firm belief, for many reasons, that with the 20th pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears should just stay put and take E.J. Manuel out of Florida State. And I'll explain why in this video. But let's set this up properly first. When you look at the Chicago Bears, heading into the 2013 season, here's what we know. They have a general manager in Phil Emery who's in his second year at the helm. The Bears, the past two seasons, had late season collapses and failed to make the playoffs after basically, screwing the pooch in the 2010 NFC Championship game against the Packers. So two straight late season collapses, two straight seasons they missed the playoffs. Lovie Smith and his philosophy is gone. Bye-bye. Phil Emery said, it's my time to bring in my guy that I'm going to basically ride or die with. And of course, he decided to go to Canada and brought in Mark Trestman from the Montreal Alouettes of the CFL. So you have a newer general manager in charge with a lot of holdovers from the Angelo regime. You have a brand new head coach who's an offensive-minded coach, which is definitely something different for Chicago. So a lot of changes afoot at Halas Hall. In terms of the actual team on the field, we know that they have strength on defense. That is the strength of their team. But we also know going into the 2013 season that by the end of the season, 6 of the starters are going to be age 30 or older. This is a defense that is still pretty good, but they are also getting older, and they are going to start to decline, and that is a fact. You also have a team that offensively, basically the offense has sucked for many years now, and has consistently, time after time after time, been the dead weight that has dragged this team down. And you saw it again in 2012. With a new offensive coach coming in, a newer general manager, a team that has been shitty, frankly, on offense for many years, and along with an aging defense, what you're going to find in 2013 is you're going to see a Bears team that a lot of fans are going to believe is better than it really is. You're going to see a Bears team that organization believes and is fooled into believing it's better than it really is. They may win 9 games. They may win 10. They may win 11. They may, toe the line. And they may be able to, sneak into the playoffs. Who knows? But it doesn't matter. Ultimately, you're not playing the game to make it to the wild card round. You play to win championships. You play to make it to and win the Super Bowl. That's it. That's the ultimate end game. And no matter what anybody tells me, you cannot convince me that the Chicago Bears, in the way they're currently constructed, are anywhere near a real legitimate Super Bowl contender. You're going to tell me even just in the NFC that they're better than the Green Bay Packers, who they can't fucking beat? Get the hell out of here. Let alone teams like the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers and the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, we can kick rocks with that shit. There's no way the Bears, the way they are currently constructed, are Super Bowl contenders. And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. And no matter what happens in 2013 during the regular season, you're not going to convince me otherwise, because it's just going to be fool's gold, just like last year's was. I kept saying all year long in 2012, this team will come back to reality. They will come back to reality. And by the end of the season, they came back to reality. This is a team in decline, not on the upswing. And as a result, they need to be rebuilt. There needs to be a major rebuilding project in Halas Hall, from the bottom to the top. It needs to be done. You've got a new general manager in place. You've got a new coach in place. The time is now to start that rebuilding project. And that rebuilding project, just like any good rebuilding project with any NFL organization, ultimately starts where, ladies and gentlemen? At the quarterback position. What we know about the Bears in terms of the quarterback position is that Jay Cutler will be their starter in 2013, as he has been for the previous 4 seasons. This is a guy, a former first-round pick of the Denver Broncos back in 2006, that the Bears gave up a boatload to acquire in that 2008-2009 offseason. We also know that Jay Cutler has been maddening to watch, incredibly inconsistent, has moments of really good play and moments of shitty play, and that cannot be denied. A lot of fans and a lot of people, talking heads, when talking about Jay Cutler, like to make excuses for him. like to talk about, shitty offensive line, bad wide receivers, poor game planning, lack of talent at tight end position, whatever the case might be, all the excuses that could possibly be made for him. And there's something to him, but there's also something not to him. Quarterbacks are supposed to make others around them better, which is something that Cutler really does not do. But what we do know is in that 4 seasons that Jay Cutler has been the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears, they've only made the playoffs once. We know that he's had 0, and I emphasize that again, 0 4,000-yard passing seasons. We also know that he's only had 1 season, and that was in 2009, his first year in Chicago, where he's actually started all 16 games. We also know that Jay Cutler is going to be 30 this year. So you start to question, how much longer does he really have? How much more does he really have in the tank? For a team that's getting older on the defensive side of the ball, and the team that still is very mediocre on the offensive side of the ball, it could potentially take a few years to rebuild up your team to make it a real Super Bowl contender. By the time you would even get to that point, Cutler would be on the decline to the point where you would have to replace him anyways. And now in 2013, Cutler's in his walk year. He's in the last year of his contract. And when you look at him, he also defies another trend. Since the 2003 season, the past 10 Super Bowl champions, there's only been 1 Super Bowl winning quarterback that wasn't drafted by the team that he won the Super Bowl with, and that was Drew Brees with the 2009 New Orleans Saints. Out of those other 9 Super Bowl champions, the only one that had a quarterback that wasn't drafted by them in the first round, or acquired by them on draft day, mind you, out in the first round, was Tom Brady with the 2003 and 2004 New England Patriots. And he's the exception to the rule, 6th-round pick in the 2000 draft. All these other quarterbacks, like the Big Bens, the Aaron Rodgers, the Eli Mannings, the Joe Flaccos, all of these guys were first-round picks when they won the Super Bowl as first-round picks of those teams. Those teams rebuilt or retooled around those young franchise quarterbacks. So Jay Cutler doesn't fit into any mold, nor do I think he's talented enough to be the guy that is the exception to the rule and breaks the mold. So when you look at a guy like E.J. Manuel, you check him with the 20th overall pick. He would be a guy that would be a first-round pick, obviously. So he would fit in with that mold. He would be a guy that you would want to bring in and build your team around. I'm not advocating that he start over at Jay Cutler in 2013 by any stretch of the imagination. No. I think it's okay to let Cutler play out his 2013 season. Let him put up maybe some better numbers in a contract year. But when you think about it from a contractual standpoint, see, it's not just about football on the field. It's about football off the field to me. And when I look at this, this also becomes a business decision. It also becomes a salary cap concern. When you see that Jay Cutler is going to be 30 this year, when you see that he's in the last year of his contract, you sit there and you say to yourself, how many years and how much money would you really want to invest in him to begin with? Whether you're a Cutler fan or not doesn't matter. It's a legitimate business concern as a football organization. Then you look at the contracts that people like Joe Flacco and Tony Romo got, and you know that huge extensions are coming for guys like Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan. And you start to get really concerned because you start to wonder, how much is it going to take to have to re-sign a Jay Cutler even if you want to? When you look at Cutler's cap figure this year, it's about $10.5 million. $10.5 million. And you know, even if he just played like regular old Cutler, kind of inconsistent and middle of the road, if the Bears did end up re-signing him, it would probably cost him somewhere in the neighborhood on an average basis of about $13 to $16 million per year. Do you really want to tie up over the next 4 to 5 years that much money into the quarterback position for a guy who is definitely not an elite quarterback? No one can argue that. And you could definitely argue is not even a franchise quarterback in terms of what he's brought to the table and his performance over the past 4 seasons. When you compare that to what E.J. Manuel would make as the 20th overall selection, you look at Kendall Wright, the 20th pick in the 2012 draft. He's in his 2nd year now. His 2nd year cap figure is going to be somewhere, give or take a couple $100,000, somewhere around $2 million. Think about that. So if you transition that to what E.J. Manuel would make as the 20th overall selection, somewhere in the 2014 range, around maybe $2.5 million. I would rather pay a 23, 24-year-old quarterback $2 to $2.5 million at the position and deal with inconsistencies and some growing pains and some struggles then pay a 31-year-old quarterback in 2014 13, 15, 16 million dollars to do a lot of those same things. Because whatever Cutler is at this point, chances are, even with some coaching by Trestman, he's probably not going to get a whole lot better. And when you think about it from a salary cap move, it is beneficial for the Bears to take a quarterback in the first round, because if they took him, let's say, in the second round, they only have 4 guaranteed years out of him in terms of contract. When you take him in the first round, you get a 5th year. So that extra year of potentially having a franchise quarterback at a very cap-friendly number is incredibly intriguing to me. And when you also talk about the Super Bowl trend of having to draft your quarterback, and usually draft him in the first round and build your team around him, E.J. Manuel will fit that mold. And you've also seen quarterbacks over the past couple of years, the guys like the Cam Newtons of the world, the Colin Kaepernicks of the world, the Russell Wilsons, the Andrew Lucks, the RG3s, guys like that. The guys that have the NFL arms, but they also have the ability to differing levels to be able to move on their feet, to create plays with their feet, to buy time with their feet. Now, I think Cutler's a little bit better athlete than, frankly, myself or his former coaching staff gave him and other fans gave him. I think he's an okay athlete and at times can extend plays with his feet, but he's not a phenomenal athlete. He's not going to hurt you as a scrambler. He's not going to hurt you as a runner, but a guy like E.J. Manuel can. Just like the guys like Andrew Luck and RG3 and Russell Wilson and Colin Kaepernick and Cam Newton. I know that everybody's going to say, well, pocket passers still win in the NFL. That's true for now, but it's not going to stay that way. And once one of these type of quarterbacks wins a Super Bowl, you're going to see many more just like him win the Super Bowl. When I look at a guy like E.J. Manuel, I see a guy that's very talented. I see a guy with prototype NFL size, a prototype NFL arm, with athleticism off the charts. Now, he's maddeningly inconsistent. He has accuracy concerns. Well, fuck. He's Jay Cutler, if you want to say it, a younger version and a much better athlete. I'd rather have a 23, 24-year-old Jay Cutler, if we want to go that way, than a 30, 31-year-old Jay Cutler, especially at the much lower cap figure. Also talking about the fact that you would have the chance to build the team around E.J. Manuel, to build it around his skill sets. The bottom line is this is a Bears team that needs to rebuild. They're going to go into 2013, unfortunately, probably draft somebody like Monte Teo, a player I like, but has no business being drafted by the Bears this year. You have an offensive-minded coach. You have a newer general manager. That offensive-minded coach is also in his first year as head coach. The Bears need to go into this draft with an offensive-first philosophy, period. No excuses. That's how you ultimately succeed. You draft around your head coach's philosophy first and foremost. And as an offensive guy, he should want to improve the offense. He should also want to make sure that he's got his quarterback in place. And a guy like E.J. Manuel would fit with some of the things that Mark Trestman wants to do as an offensive mind. Jay Cutler, I don't think really does. Do you really think that Mark Trestman and Phil Emery want to invest their future and put their future with the Bears organization at risk for a guy that somebody else brought in Jerry Angelo, who got fired in part because of Cutler's shitty play? I don't think so. The timing is right. The time is now. Because if the Bears get that quarterback in place in E.J. Manuel in 2013, have him ready to go for the 2014 season, they can start retooling that offense and also retooling that defense, which is going to be necessary. The Bears aren't going to contend this year. They're not going to contend next year. They may not contend in 2015. But the quicker that organization, the fan base, the coaches, everybody, the front office, comes to the realization that this Bears team needs to be gutted and it needs to be rebuilt and it needs to start with the quarterback position, and E.J. Manuel is the right guy to do it, the quicker everybody comes to that realization, the quicker the Bears will be on the path to someday being real, legit Super Bowl contenders, which, once again, I will emphasize, they are not this year. The Bears, with all the other things taken into account, they need to draft a quarterback in the first round this year, and the guy to take, is E.J. Manuel out of Florida State.